Alright, we should now be live. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live stream where I'm finally getting to releasing the new version of my particle system. This will be out on Gumroad if you're watching this anytime in the future. For free, I should mention. This version of it is going to be free. But yes, as you can see, I got the particle trails working quite nicely. And a little change from last time is I'm making this a lot more convenient. In this case, as we can see, this is the particle system. That's it. That's the node. I wanted to make it so that the particle system would be one nice compact thing that you can just add, and then that's it. You don't need to worry about even adding a simulation zone. It's all just there by default. Now, in this scenario, it's still a little bit messy because I added in also custom attributes. So, since the simulation zone is inside the node group, adding in, making it as customizable as you want is a little bit more difficult. But I made it so that, in this scenario, it's like, if it hits something, I'm going to keep that data so that the particles turn orange. And in this case, you just have, a named attribute did hit, and it's just, if it hit, or if it already hit, it'll do that, and it works quite well. And as you can see, I made the portal version with this as well, and it got a lot smaller. As we can see, it's super small now. All you need to do is add in one node, and there are options, I should go over this. To add in new particles, it's similar to how you would do it before, but it's all just in one group. You label, you put in particles, you determine the settings for it, the velocity and such, and then you let that go. For the movement, this is basically the gravity section. This one could be expanded upon with custom rotations and such. And then after that, you have the collision parameters, which collisions are the most difficult part of this setup. And I got it in a good place, but still could be better. In this scenario, actually, wait a second, the collisions are not correct in this mode because I need to turn on raycast mode, which oddly enough has no iterations in this scenario. So it still needs a little bit of work. But yeah, it works quite well. And in this case, they're deleting on hit, which I forgot to disable. So let's redo that. There we go. It's beautiful. And yeah, that's what's happening currently. And then afterwards, you just instance whatever you want at the end there. I recommend keeping these closed whenever you're not using them, because it just makes it look a lot simpler. So even for a semi-complex setup like spawning particles from a very custom setup, like from, in this case, a curved circle, it's just so easy to use. And that's the goal. In the previous versions, I was like, okay, let's make this as customizable as possible. But now it's like, wait, if we just make it a very easy to use setup, a little bit of lost customizability is okay. And the nodes still exist internally. So if you wanted to create your own, you could. But as we can see here, it's a little bit annoying to set up all the settings as is. Sorry if you hear noises in the background. Yeah, that should be fine. I hope noise suppression got that. But as we can see, the goal is to make it once, which is a little bit complicated, so that you never have to look at it again. The goal is for the user to only look at these settings and then just be like, we're good. I am hoping that we get nested subpanels in the future. As far as I know, there's no plan for that at the moment with the Blender dev stuff. Because at the moment, it's still a little bit disorganized with the way it's set up. In the old particle system here, as we can see, first scenario, we have nested subpanels, which makes it a lot more, organized, which is nice. Here, I don't know why that disappeared. Here, I need to use, where is it? I'm using spacers, which are just strings with 0 inputs for that, which we don't have access. We don't have access to actual spacers in the modifier or in the node group setup. But I hope we can get that in the future. But yeah, there's room for improvement, but unfortunately that room, at least on the UI side, I cannot do. That would be something that the Blender devs would implement, which again, I don't foresee them doing that anytime soon, so it'll be a while. For the collision, once again, you could turn off the bounciness so that it's just, they just slide along the floor, or make it so that they bounce 100%. Friction, of course, is always there, which if we do that, we should see that they become basically non-existent. There we go, we can see that that happens. And it works quite well. Let me just go and reset that. Hopefully oh no, okay, the cache just became invalidated for a little bit. But yeah, that's the story behind that. I already showed the variable size collision, which is this one. I really like this one, especially with the trails. So as we can see here, here, let me turn off the timings, because that's just too much visual noise. You can instance stuff on the particles, but you can also create a trail, which is its own separate node. I was showcasing this a little while ago in previous live streams, but you can set like the lifetime of the trail. In this case, I'll set it to be 15. It could be something very, very high, but that becomes laggy very fast for optimization reasons. And this, oh, that looks so good. Like, look at that. I want to create like a meteor shower effect using this. It would look amazing. But again, it's just 3 main nodes and then, quite a few nodes to just customize the effect to your liking. Because that's the issue. How do you make a node setup where it's as customizable as you want, but, in a very compact case? So next up that I need to showcase is the create the child particles. Oh, and I need to change the shader for this because I haven't split the shader yet. Okay, so for a scenario like this, where you have particles that spawn multiple particle systems off of it, let's see how that is done. So we have the first particle system, which is just, we spawn in particles. We have a little switch to enable particles or not. I could just connect this up into here so that you don't need to use the switch node by like just having, one line going into there. And then there's, all the other settings with varying velocity and such. For the colliders, oh wait, I could just put the collision in here. That's why I'm uploading this after, the live stream, just in case I forgot any little things. Alright, so we have that. That's the first part of the particle system. Then the next part is the sparkles that spawn in when there's an impact. So for here, we use another node. Okay, let's just showcase this. The child particles node. So the source would be the previous object, which is right there, and that goes and separates the particles on death. In this case, when they delete, they get transferred outwards, and then that is put into the child particles input right here. I was thinking about putting this entire setup inside of this setup, but without the nested subpanels, I thought that that would be way too much visual noise. So it's a separate node, and it helps keep you a bit more organized. You can change all your settings while still having new particles that you include by default. And then the position inputs are right there. So instead of having everything in one very, very long node, it's spread out across the x-axis a little bit more. So that part's good. I'm happy with that. And then again, you instance on particles, and then you can align the instances to the camera using another node that I set up. Oh, and also for the particle instance node, it's basically the instance on points node, but I added in some more customizability just because. Yeah, so that's that. And then the last part in the system is the actual crystals that spawn in. As we can see, they go and do that. And here, as we can see, it's so small. This is the entire particle system, and that's why I like, you can compress it so much. But here, the source is the previous object. And then, again, it's when they delete. You could make it so that it's only when they hit, but in this case, these delete on hit, so it should be fine either way. 6 child particles, lifetime 500. The velocity is technically carried over, but I think that should be turned off. And here, the movement, the velocity is just set to 0. So it's a little bit redundant. So we have that, and then the movement is basically 0, no collision, and then no custom attributes. So it's just, hey, keep the particles here, you're good. But update the age and such. And then after that, we just, change the rotation and scale of the particles based on the age parameter. And this is how I like, this is what I envisioned when I first set out making this particle system. Something extremely straightforward and simple with a lot of functionality. The biggest part of the node setup will be you making your own parameters for it. But everything else you just don't need to worry about. And it seems to work very well in most of the scenarios that I've come up with. Most of them are just, spawning particles from particles and so on. But yeah, it's good. And then for the last showcase, this one is extremely simple. Let's see, let's go and collapse all this. Actually, wait. Oh, that's funny. So another little showcase, I haven't fully converted this into the new system just yet, but you could set the particle information yourself and then put it in there into the child particle input, and it would work just the same. Ideally, I would just have these inputs be in here because it's kind of redundant, but, it's fine. So that is an option to make it even simpler than before. And this is a smoke scenario. And these billboards are, again, aligned to the camera so that they look correct. Again, how a game would have it. So that's that, and I think it looks pretty good. If you have any questions about it, please put it in the chat. Again, this will be out on Gumroad after the stream. I just have a few last things to edit. I need to make sure all the default attributes are good. But I think this is in a good scenario. This is in 4.1, by the way. Just because I want to take advantage of all the new technology. 4.1 will be released in March, I believe. And yeah. So again, this is experimental technology. Just to get a simple particle system up and running. But the good thing is, this is already so much more powerful than Blender's inbuilt particle system. Except when it comes to particle-to-particle interactions, because I don't know how to do that yet. But it should be much easier to create child particles from this. Okay. And also, if you don't want separate objects to have your particle systems in, you could just go and chain them by default. You could just go and chain them inside of one system. It could get a little bit big if you have, like trails, instancing, and all of that. But it should be alright. Alright. Is it possible to use Blender geometry nodes in a game engine? No. No, it's not. Everything in here is only usable inside of Blender. That is the goal, that is the point. The goal for this is just to have a good particle system inside of Blender for your projects. If you, like Unreal Engine and stuff like that, have their own particle systems, which I am partly basing this on, that are more powerful than geometry nodes is, in particle terms, shall we say. But yeah, this is just so that geometry nodes, geometry nodes was originally supposed to be particle nodes. That was the original implementation back in like 2019, which is like 5 years ago at this point, 4 or 5 years ago. But since the developers are very busy working on other projects, and also geometry nodes development is kind of on hold at the moment to work on other projects, it's like, let's make a particle system to, complete that arc of geometry nodes. Finally, it can actually make a particle system that is good enough for multiple scenarios. Yeah, so I guess I could try to let's go and make a system from scratch using this. So let's click new. let's put in a particle simulation. Particle simulation v1. Let's go and connect that to the output. For the new particles, I'll just have, I don't know, let's use the distribute points on faces node. Distribute points on faces, and we connect that to the new particles inputs. So this will make it so that particles will spawn on the said face, and they'll only be included on the start. For the start velocity, let's add in some random velocity in this case. That might be a bit too much. Let's set 2.111. For the movement, let's just add in some gravity. Okay, let's run it, and there we go. Oh, there we go. These are currently, there's nothing instanced on this at the moment, so we can see that that happens. For the collision, we need to decide our collider. Let's turn collision on as well. As we can see right here, there we go. The particles are now colliding. So that was what, 20 seconds to set this up? And that's the goal. Have something that you can set up extremely easily in a few seconds. And there we go. Now we can then instance on particles. Let's see. Oh, particle instance. That's why I called it. The naming convention is a little different to Blender's naming convention, and that is on purpose so that I can search it easier. So if we do this, we want the size to be the scale. So now we can see, boom, we have particles that are going around, and that's just fine. Now let's make a trail. Let's do particle trail. Trail? For some reason, and I do not know why. Let's see, where is trail? Trail? There we go, particle trail. I didn't spell wrong, but for some reason it's being a little... Let's see, particle... Yeah, the spelling should be correct. It's being a little weird with the search functionality. I'll figure that out. But here, if we want a trail, let's set the lifetime to be 15. We can use the ID. Camera line, yes, and I'll just set it to be the regular trail material. So, oh wait, let's set the radius to be a bit bigger. So as we can see, in just like 10 seconds, we have trails on our particles, which that's the goal of this. It's to, have something that's very easy to set up, and it just works, in the famous words of Todd Howard. There we go, particles that spawn in, and they just work. So yeah. I really like it. Let's go and, oh, and for the new particles, we can make it so that they keep spawning in over time. Let's randomize the seed, so let's use frame. Oh, that's a bit too much. Let's lower that by a bit. So here we have tons of particles spawning in. They're going all around with trails and everything, and it just works. You can hear the excitement in my voice. But it's just because, oh, we finally have something that is convenient to use. Oh, and let's also turn on, in the collision department, self-collision. One iteration, we can bump that up a bit more. Let's see. And as we can see now, self-collisions are working. And as we can also see, the particles are deleting after frame 100. Let's go and change that. Let's collapse the... windows. Let's also set a random size to these. Ooh, let's go and copy this and put it in there. There we go. And then let's set this to be 0.1. There we go. Okay. So now these have a random scale, and as we can see, it's working beautifully. There we go. And the trails, again, are doing their thing. The trails, in this case, are aligned to the camera, which, to make it more like a game engine. And it's pretty good. Pretty good. If you have any ideas for particle systems that I should try making, please let me know, because I want to test this out and see what I can make with it. Let's see, noise, texture. Let's set this to be 2D. Let's make it so that there's some random velocity happening here. Let's make it so that gravity is still a thing. So we're just going to go and plug this into the velocity as an additive property. The one downside from having all these settings here is that, they all convene at the same point, which is a little bit annoying, but it's not as bad as the alternative. So let's just go and put in a scale node. Let's set that to be like 0.01 just to keep it nice and compact. As we can see here, we should see that the noise is now affecting, there we go, they're affecting the particles. Very, very nice. Very cool. Ah, that's wonderful. Perfect. Maybe sand/grain simulation. That is a little out of my wheelhouse at the moment because, again, particle-to-particle collisions are still experimental, shall we say. Make them smaller the longer the lifetime. I could do that. I could just do that visually, which is easy to do, or I can make it so that the actual size is edited over time, and it will affect the collision and such. We have to use the custom attribute setting for this, which is completely planned. So if we want the size to scale down over time, again, this is a dynamic attribute, so every frame it updates. If we do this, then we can see, if I set to 0.1, oh, and we need to enable use, just for optimization, we can see that the particles scale down to basically 0 over time. But we don't want it to be like that. We want another named attribute, which is a life, to go and affect this. And also, if you want a list of the named attributes used, you can usually see it here, but not always. There'll be a list in the Gumroad documentation, or just, you know, the Gumroad thing. Oh wait, why did that happen? Okay, let's set this to 0 and 1. So this means that when they get to be 80% done with their lives, they will scale down. And since I made it so that these have a lifetime of 500, that's not quite the best, so let's make it 100. There we go. So here we should see, yep, there we go. They scale down and then they die. Okay. How easy is it to add turbulence or wind? This already has both of those. So let me turn off the size change right now, collapse that just to make it a little more compact. So here, yeah, and here's the reason why I'm still keeping the, like, the set particle info, and then you can just put into the child particles thing. Having all of this right here can be a little inconvenient, but I can make it, you know, with just the set particle info node. I could just do this. Oh wait, but it's spawning in only on the start frame. Yeah. Okay, well, it's fine the way it is. Let's just connect all of these. Velocity. There we go. It's a little inconvenient to have everything going into one place like that, but it's not as bad as it would be normally. Okay. So we have that. So for turbulence, I'm just using a noise field. As we can see here, it's affecting it a little bit, especially when you see all the particles falling. Let's set it to be 0.3. Just to bump it up a little. No, let's do 0.6. There we go. So with enough turbulence, they will start flying. But if you want wind, in this case, we don't even need anything else in here. Wind is just a force being put off to the side. So in this case, I'll make it so that they're being blown in that direction. So as we can see, the particles are now going vroom. They're just going out and over. It looks pretty cool. And also, if we disable that, we can just see these in their natural state. Actually, let's do this one more time. Let's make it so that the particles will keep spawning. Let's put in frame. There we go. Let's collapse it. So now, oh my god. Oh, that's a bit too much, but it looks cool. I'm just making sure that, okay, the texture's not clipping. That's good. Let's set the density to be like 3. There we go. Okay. So now we can see, and performance is not tanking, which I am a little bit surprised by. But there we go. As we can see, it's so good. I really like it. And then, again, we can just connect the instance parts, and it's good. Yes, it is. One thing to note is that if you just output the point clouds like this, the point cloud radius is not, that's not the size of the particle, and that is because after you convert the particles to instances, that data gets kind of wiped. So I put in a size attribute, which does get kept after it's converted into an instance, so that if you use child particles, they'll be converted back just fine. The point clouds won't render in Eevee, at least not in the current version of Eevee. They will in Eevee next, but they will in cycles. So if you want the point clouds to not show up, if you put them through the particle trail, they'll disappear, and then if you do that, they'll just turn into regular objects. Alright. And if you want to set the particle radius to be the size, you set the point radius, and then you use the size attributes. And you should see here that it's now matching 1-to-1. There we go. So that's pretty good. There we go. And in the shader editor, I don't want to edit this too much because I'm still working on the shaders for this. Let's go over, where's the trail material? We could have a random input for the trail color because, again... Oh, wait a second. Yeah, the random value node, I still need to work on that just a little bit. But if you have the ID, I need to test this if it works. Let's see, where is the... Now the float point, for some reason the ID attribute outputs float point precision errors, which is very odd, and I haven't found a way to fix it. Because all these particles have a unique ID attribute, which you could use for the random values. But here we can see, oh no, yeah, the particles are having a random color. It was just a little bit hard to see. Is that because I'm using Filmic instead of AGX? Ah, there we go. Now we can see the random colors. Let's also go and turn off the particles so that we can only see the trails. And there we go. Ah, it's beautiful. Let's make it a little more beautiful with changing this to be a more complementary color. Ooh, that's cool. Like, look at that. And also, these are, again, I'm not going to save this version, but these are aligning to the camera. One of the reasons why I'm using Blender 4.1 is the set curve normal node, which it's so good that we finally got that. But this means that they will always point towards the camera no matter where you go, kind of like how a game engine would. Let's see, let's read the chat real quick while we watch the show. Let's go and... Actually, I want to make it so that these particles, they don't fall down. They will fall up. So let's go and do that. Which again, this is very simple to do. We just go and reverse gravity. Let's change that to be 0. And yeah, let's put in the noise again so that they will go up with noise. Oh, that is beautiful. Sorry if I'm geeking out about my own projects, but it's finally good to see something that's nice and convenient to use that just, again, works. But the color could be better. So let's go and change said color. Let's go and change a bit of this. I will reset this version of the file for when I make the last final changes. So this version, this node setup probably won't be in it. Well, this particle system probably won't be in the end result. But I do need to add in more examples. Right now I have 6 of them, but I need to put in some more. It's so good. I'm so happy with this. It's finally good enough. Okay. Let me read the chat real quick. Let's turn up the noise. That's fun. Little ghosts. Oh, and also, the trail, you can set the radius by the age, In this case, let me go and use the age, no, the trail age, because that's a named attribute that exists. In this case, the lifetime is 30, so I can put that in there and make it so that these get a lot bigger over time, so that they look like, you know, misty trails, I guess. Which actually, like the setup that I had yesterday, there we go, we can see the noise. Let me change the color to be a little more orange, maybe like a missile. I also recommend, if you're using like really bright values, to use AGX, because that just fits a little bit better. But let me just make this look a little less ugly at the moment. Can change that so that has a bit more of that happening. There we go. Sorry, I will read the chat. I'm just so preoccupied with this. Okay, that it's all right, but I think the setup that I have for the fancy light pop is still... There we go, that's a little bit better. Now, if you wanted to have, you know, another Ark of the Covenant, like ghost spirits emerging from a box, you can do that. And as we can see, it works pretty well. Okay, now let's look at the chats. Okay, can you make them align along a curve or an edge vertices/face? You could, but, you could, but that would have to be, like, if it's something that can edit the velocity, then you can do it. Because with this setup, let me showcase more of it. Also, hello, we have 70 people here. That's wow, that's a lot of people. Hopefully you are enjoying this particle system. And again, I need to mention, this will be on Gumroad, on my Gumroad page, for free when the stream ends. And, well, maybe an hour after, just because I need to still make a few changes. With the velocity attribute here, as you can see, this is currently offsetting the velocity. But I could make it so that this just is the velocity. So in this case, the offsets are just, this is just an offset. It's like you're using the set position offset mode. But if we use another named attribute, let me put this in here. One of the attributes is velocity, which means that the velocity is just the previous velocity. So you could do all kinds of custom setups with this. In this case, it's just like if I were to just offset this and set it to 0.1, but, you know, you can do a lot more with this, like snapping it to the surface of an object and so on. But yeah, so many, actually, yeah, I should showcase how you would snap this to the surface of an object, because that is still a little bit funky to do with velocity and such, but I have done it before. But that might be a little bit boring to watch for everyone here. Okay. Let's see, can you add custom logic similar to the L system in Houdini to the particles, like have a string of letters telling the particles how to interact? No. That is way above my wheelhouse at the moment. There is a project which may happen, which is a function node, which someone was working on. I think they were working on it like in December of 2023. I'm guessing for the holidays they took a break, but as far as I know, no development has happened on that since. So there's a good chance that well, a lot of projects that have been worked on that would be very useful have been abandoned. So there's a chance that that'll happen. So I'm not going to hold my breath for that, but let's hope that it'll actually be developed in full. This looks really good. Let's see, what else could I do? Actually, yeah, I could, with the velocity, I could go and add to it, but also rotate it. So we're taking the previous velocity, and then I could put in a vector rotate. Let's set it to be the z-axis, turn off offset. So, and then rotate it by 5 degrees every single frame. There we go. Now we can see we have a kind of tornado effect of these ghostly spirits. And it looks pretty good. Let's read the other parts of the chat. How would you add an object for the particles to track? For that, you would just need a force to that object, which maybe I'll make something along those lines. Yeah, so like snapping to the surface of an object, that would be a good idea for a node, because again, now that we have the base functionality, I can go and expand upon it with adding more customized, like actually making a system for it. So making it track an object, let's just have this be an empty. Let's bring this over to here. Yeah, I can keep the noise for now. And it's very interesting how having one node, it feels a little bit more messy just because all the lines are going into one place. But anyway, let's use an object info node. So with this, we're going to select sed empty, set it to relative. And to do that, we need to subtract from the current position. Now this is a force to that object. It's just an offset to go there. So if I connect this into here, they will go there instantly, which as we can see is not quite the best. So we need to slow that down significantly. 0.01. So here we can see they are trying to go towards the empty. I should make this a node with settings for like, oh, do you want it to be just a percentage of the distance like I'm doing here? Or do you want it to be a set distance? Because if I normalize this and then put it into here, these will always move. The force will always be 0.1 meter, 0.01 meters to go there. But if we do it this way, it will be like kind of like a percent. So if we set this to be like 0.1, as we can see, it will always go there a little bit over time. Also, I have an edit velocity mode, a velocity edit mode, which is just, hey, you can add additional forces or scale it without having to add in more nodes. It's a bit more convenient. It can be. So if you did just want to do something like this, just like, oh, that saved a few nodes, and oh, I want that velocity to be in there, that'll work just fine. So you could just do this, again, condensing these setups, and these could both be in there, but, you know, it's optional. Again, I could put the gravity in there, and so on. Again, just optimizing. So now we just have one input going into there, which is nice. And I could, again, add in drag, which is just scaling the velocity down. So as we can see, all these particles are going straight towards the center of that object. Dang, that looks cool. I screwed up something, but it looks cool. Oh, no, that's because the rotation... Wait, yeah, what happened to the... Oh, I deleted the rotation node. Whoopsie. And also, why did I screw something up? And as we can see, the node setup is easy. This is just for convenience. Are these particle nodes built in with Blender 4.1? Ah. I will change the title for that to be custom. New custom particle system. No, these are not in 4.1 by default. It's something that I created. Again, this is going to be up on Gumroad. It would be nice if we had stuff like this in by default, but I don't think that node groups are good enough to completely replace the old system. Again, the menu switch is not in 4.1 yet, but we're getting close. Like, I feel like I'm almost at... Yeah, why are they just going up and down? I'm a little confused by that. Is that just because of... I'm a little confused as to why. There's nothing in there that would say... Interesting. Maybe that was just not a side effect, but something intentional. And again, we could also turn up the drag the closer it gets to the object by using the length. Let's see, maybe noise is too high. Yeah, that's most likely it. So if I use, say, a map range, we can change the force to the object, or we can turn up the dampening. So here, let's see. If it gets within, let's see, like 5 meters, it'll become, there we go. Yeah, I'm still a little bit confused as to why the particles are just going up or down like that. Oh, the noise is 2D, that's why. Oh, I forgot about that. I don't know why I set it to 2D. Of force of habit, I assume. Man, I said that in a very fancy way. But yeah, here we go. So if you want missiles to go and attack an object that are made out of vapor trails, there you go. And again, the ribbons are facing the camera, which not the local camera, it's the active camera, because as we can see here, if we move this around, they will go there. All right. So let me just go and show again. Oh, that is so cool. Look at that. That is really cool. What's the difference in GeoNodes between using 2D and 3D? Well, that just means, oh, look at that. Like, that's the goal with this. Have a simple particle system like the trails. The trails system, I'm pretty proud of now because I finally got it working. So good. So good. All right. I should probably rebase the file because I do want to add in that snapping, velocity snapping node. Or snap to object. Yeah, no, that could work. Computation time, I suppose. Yes, so with noise being in 2 dimensions, as you would think, it's like as if the noise was on a flat plane. So actually, I can showcase this little tangent right here. Let's just go and show this. Let's make a new material. I need to rebase the file. I'm just reminding myself of that right now. Here is just a noise texture. I'll put the geometry position as the input. So let's set this to be 2 dimensions. As we can see, this is the noise. This is also what geometry nodes sees. But if we extrude it on the z-axis, as we can see here, it's just the same, because again, it's a 2-dimensional texture. If we set it to 3D, now we can see that, oh, it's now 3 dimensions. It keeps changing even in the 3rd dimension. And there is 4-dimensional noise, which you can just like change the phase on, because again, 3D programs, their kind of limit for dimensional stuff is, again, 3 dimensions. And then 1 dimension would just be a direction. So if we were to separate X, Y, and Z, this would just be 1 dimension of noise, as we can see here. And this can be very useful in many scenarios, especially when dealing with stuff like trails. If you want there to just be noise that just affects the brightness of the particle along there without taking into account the width, you would use 1-dimensional noise, and so on. Alright. Looks like an interactive wallpaper. That's the goal, because, again, particle systems, people have been doing them for a long time. I just want to make something nice and convenient. That's the goal. Make something convenient to use, because look at that. That is beautiful. But yeah, I should make an effector object. And due to some limitations in GeoNodes, there are still things that we can't really do. Like regular force fields, we can't really use, because I do not have access to, one, I don't have access to those objects, or the data from those objects. It would be nice if someone were to make an object that would import that data, but I do not have the ability to do that in C++. But again, that's like for when the Blender devs start actually looking at implementing particle systems. Because again, the big simulation nodes update was only 2 nodes. It was the building blocks for stuff like this, but it's still not quite ready for a full-fledged system yet. This is just version 1. And man, that looks cool, interesting, and terrifying. Like, you do not want to go there. Oh, and also I should turn raycast collision on with bounce set to 1, because that could look really, really cool. Raycast mode will make it so that if a particle has a size of 0, it'll look good when that happens. If it has a scale of 0, it will bounce correctly. That's something where the size collision has an issue. There is capsule collision that I could try with particles with a scale, but I haven't figured that out yet, which is very annoying for me. But anyway. Yep. So as we can see here, whenever one hits down there, they will bounce off the surface. And I could also make it so that when they hit, they delete. So we should see here, as soon as one hits, it just goes bye-bye. Yeah, that's really cool for like a... You can make smoke bombs, you can make whatever you want. I really like the trail system because it's just cooler. One thing that I've thought about is adding in velocity and offsets to the trails themselves. Because if I say use a set position, I probably will add it, but I want to get the base functionality out there on Gumroad soon. So let's set this to be 0.1. So here we can see that the trails are going up over time, which is a little bit... doesn't look that great, but I am considering adding in proper velocity so that it does look right. It would basically be like this particle system, but a little more advanced. Oh, and also, by the way, if you don't want to use the ribbon, you can just export the curves, and then you can do whatever you want. So if you want to use a curve to mesh node, you could just put in like a circle, and it should work just fine. With the one caveat that these are all facing like the... Oh wait, if I turn off camera line, there you go. So now you can see that that's working just fine. Maybe I should... Oh, the rate... Wait. What's up with the radius? Oh, dang. I forgot. Okay, that's something I need to do. Setting the radius will actually set the curve radius. Whoopsie, I forgot about that. That's why I do these live streams before putting these out on the internet, so that I can catch any little errors that I made. So you could make it a tube of geometry rather than the everything else. Alright. So actually, I'm going to, let's see. Let me read the chat once again. I'm going to also, let's see, busy screen. Let's see, I'm going to rebase the file, re-add in the kind of misty particle system, because that will be one of the demos, which will look pretty cool. Let's go into GeoNode editor. I'm going to get that trail material, and I'm going to duplicate it so that we get trail, trail 2. That's what I will label it. Trail 2, there we go. And I'm going to, for the velocity, I need the noise and this, which is fine. I'll just plug that in there, should be good. Offset is okay. Let's set this to be like 0.1. So that should be good. We do not need that part. We only need that. Trail 2. I need to set the radius, and I also need to fix that little bug. I forgot to put that up here. So a little, whoops. There we go. We just set the curve radius, and then we send it out. There we go. Just put, whoops. There we go. That's better. Let's see. And ideally, radius. Okay. And you all will not have to look inside of this setup once. That's the goal. The goal is that you'll never have to look inside of this. Okay, let's use the age, named attribute trail age, use a map range. Should probably make a trail life value, but that makes it more expensive. And the trails are a little bit expensive because of a geometry nodes limitation. I can't use Blender's inbuilt, not hair system. Oops, I plugged that into the wrong one. Ribbon system that's used for, like, hair and stuff in cycles. Let's see, is that... Oh, no, this makes... Oh, I did the... It's inverted, which makes it so that the trails scale down over time. Whoopsie. Let's set that to be, like, 0.1, maybe a little bit more. And I need to, again, edit the shader. It says, set this to be 0.5. That should be good. Let's go into the shader editor, trail 2. Let's go and delete everything that's unnecessary. Oh, and also, here's the iridescent shader. Well, okay, the iridescence is a little lost on this version. Let's go and do that. It seems to be okay, but not great. Here, let's fix it to be what it was before. So it was like this. I set this to be 0.95 for the fall off. Maybe a little more blue. I want it to be a little more ghastly and ghostly. Could be good. There we go. The width is not good enough just yet. And I need to edit how many of these are spawning in per frame because that's a little bit too much. Set that to be 1. That's close to what we had before, but not quite. So I just need to edit the scale a little bit. 0.075 for the noise because the noise was just a little bit too much. Oh, and yeah, that was supposed to go up. There we go. Maybe 0.02. Just so that it generally goes up, but not too much. And I could make it so that the noise rotates the velocity, but I think that's a little unnecessary at this time. Let's set the radius to be, I don't know, even more. That feels like it's too much. But let's edit the shader to make sure. So let's go and that's fine. Yeah, I think that'll be. Now the trail's too much, even here. Okay, let's switch over to this. Sorry, I will read the chat. I'm just so absorbed into this project. Let's set this to be less, because it's moving around way too much for my liking. Because again, this is the default camera, and it's just going everywhere except where I kind of want it to. There we go. Oh, and also there's a resolution option. If you're seeing little errors in the trail, that could be because there's not enough geometry for it to show up on correctly. So if you just turn that up, it will fix quite a few of those errors. And also, if you're using use ID, which means that these will be connected. If you turn that off, then every segment will be disconnected, which I probably should turn that on by default. You can turn the curve into a NURB, and you can turn up the resolution, which will smoothen it out if the particles are moving very, very fast. It might be a little bit inaccurate because we don't really have substepping, but it should help for the most part. There we go. Let's set this to 0.01. There we go. No, I don't like that all too much. 0.5. Okay, now that we have this, it is time to finally read the... Oh, I know why that it's, I know why it's moving around so much. I forgot to scale down the velocity. Okay, so I'm just gonna do... Here, I'll just plug this into additional forces. There we go. Like, I could just use a scale node, but this is easier, and also it has, you know, it's editing the velocity. Oh. Okay, what did I mess up? Is one of the add nodes wrong? Oh, no, I forgot to uncheck offset there. There we go. Yeah, scale too small. Let's go and make that bigger. That looks very ghostly, and it's making me uncomfortable. Let's set it to be 0.5. There we go. That's a little bit better. They're not flying everywhere all the time. You know, there's just a general noise field happening, and it should be good. All right, very good. Let's go into the shader editor. Maybe tone this down a bit so that it still has that kind of stretch to it. Oh, that's cool. Gives that kind of smoky look. Maybe, yeah, that's good. Okay, let me go and save this version. Okay, let me read the chat again. Man, that looks cool. The iridescent version, we don't need that. Let's just simplify it to be a little bit easier. For the fade, yep, there's 2 versions of the fade, should be fine. Yeah, should be good. Like, I don't think I'll be making shader editor nodes for this. Maybe in the future, but we'll see. Alright, let me read the chat finally. What tutorials would you recommend for me to do character creations and animations? For animation, I would recommend Alan Becker's 12 Principles of Animation videos on YouTube. Beyond that, I don't know much for Blender stuff. Let's see, maybe noise is too high, yep. Difference between that and that. Have you ever tried Unity's shader graph and VFX graph? Yes, I have, but it was quite a long time ago. Fall-offs, as in Modo or Cinema, are still a pain in Blender. Are you meaning like the float curve like fall-offs? So float curve and such? Because, yeah, there was a plan to implement the curves in the editors as sockets, but that is... nothing came of that. Another one of the abandoned projects. Unfortunately. There we go. And again, since these are facing the camera... Oh, and I should probably showcase what this looks like if these are not facing the camera. Because right now, they're ribbons. But if you turn off camera align, they will be Z-up axis oriented. And they will now turn into crisscrosses. So they will be 3D. I wouldn't normally recommend that, just because this is faster and looks better in more scenarios, but then again, you might want it. Who knows? How long have you been using Blender? I think around 8 years now. I started when I was very young, just trying to make Minecraft animations. And then during 2020, I graduated, and I was like, you know what, I should try making this into a career. And that did happen. So 2020 was when I quote-unquote got good, which is kind of funny to say. But with geometry nodes, all the skills that I've learned have been within the last 2 years. Because quite often, especially in Blender, since I'm not too much of a coder, a lot of my abilities have been limited by the node editor's technology. Because again, when geometry nodes first came out, it was very, very limited, a very weird system, which they completely redid a year later to the system that we currently have, and they keep updating it. So all of these setups where it's like, oh, we have the drop downs, oh, we can align the ribbons to the camera. All of that is limited by the nodes that we are getting. So every time that upgrades, I upgrade the systems that I make. So if you want to learn geometry nodes, the more you wait, the better it will become, because more nodes get added and you don't have to learn the workarounds. But it won't take you too long to learn geometry nodes, because I learned it in 3 years, and the reason it took, well, 2 to 3 years, and the reason it took that long was because a majority of the nodes did not exist, which is very funny. Okay, let me read the other parts. Have you tried sort elements? I haven't, but I think that's probably really, really good. Reordering the indices is something that is very much necessary. So I'm happy that actually, is that in this version? Sort elements. No, it's not in this version. It must be in a branch of geometry nodes, but I haven't tried it yet. But I am excited for it. I'm very, very excited. Alright, any other particle systems I should try out? Because, actually, yeah, let's go and put this into another system. This will be Sim, Spirits. Oh, wait, yeah, I misspelled that. There we go, Spirits. Yeah. Oh, no, wait, I wanted that to be the object name, not the collection name. Sim Spirits. Just go and put this in there. All these, what are these all named? Sim Smoke, okay, Sim Spirits. There we go. So another one in the collection, which this is looking pretty good, if I do say so myself. Alright, so that's good. Let me save this in its current condition. And again, I just want to repeat it, this will be out on Gumroad a little while after the stream is over. So that is good. Another thing that I want to do in the future is to make these simulations be global/local space compatible, which is a little difficult to do. I do have a self-transform node, which can turn everything into, like, this is now almost a global space effect, even though that should be before that system. So now this, oh. Yeah, no, that's not entirely, oh, that is interesting. A few things that need to be done. Because whenever you want to set your particle system to be global space, right now it's referencing the active camera, but that's still in the kind of local space, so we can see here, if I rotate this, where it sees the camera edits, which shouldn't be a thing. So that's something I need to worry about. It would be, ideally, it would just be a, like, in geometry nodes, you would just have a check for local space / global space, but unfortunately, I don't think the devs are interested. I don't think they have it on their radar at the moment. It's something that is in Unreal's Niagara system, and it's very convenient, but in Blender, we have to add it ourselves, and because it would be better to do it in the code, because when an object is original / relative, doing a world space thing would kind of override that in a way to make the, you know, not have to add it for every single part of your setup. But anyway, that's all good. Let me add in some more wind because I think that looked pretty cool. There we go. Maybe a little bit more wind. Like, oh, look at that. Some of you who have been watching my streams for a long time will remember that one of the first projects I worked on was a kind of wind tunnel looking system that was somewhat like this with the trails. And that project got kind of abandoned when the caching system came out and the trails became way too expensive to use. But now with the new trailing system that I created, it might be back on the menu, which is cool to see. Set this to be like 0.3. There we go. Very cool. That's so cool to see. For the collision, let me turn down that and then turn up the friction. So here we can see that it's now going through there and actually being affected by drag, which is very cool. Maybe 0.1. I should also mention that this system does not use delta time, which some people might, you know, people might think, oh, that's a bad design decision. But in my case, it just, in my head, it's just, okay, velocity is how much it moved during that frame. So it's much more controllable in my head. It's like, okay, how far did it move? At least when it comes to the collision systems. Like maybe when I get to like version 3 or 4, I would add in delta time, which would make it more consistent with other engines and such. But for the moment, this is fine. Like, the velocity is just how far it moved every single frame, instead of, oh, this is how far it would move if it was the same velocity for 24 frames, or 30 frames, or whatever your frame rate currently is. Alright, let's go and turn that off. Collapse it again. And there we go. Let's see. Learning from you got me a job. I don't know how to thank you for all this free gold you keep posting. That's very encouraging to hear. I'm very happy for you. Yeah, the goal of all these projects is so that you can learn the stuff that I learned in a faster way without the headache of trying to test a ton of methods, having to learn a ton of algorithms and stuff. The goal is to make it so that you have a fast track to learn a lot of the math behind this stuff, because I did not go to college for this. I did not know how physics or anything like this worked. I learned it on the fly, and now I'm in a semi-good position with this. So if you can learn it that fast, it's really good. Okay. I mean, the time it takes to set it up, and in every other app, it's basically the distance to an empty / locator. Yeah, the distance, like, if you want the distance to an object, like, here we have all the building, with geometry nodes, we have all the building blocks, but not really any of the convenience. Well, geometry nodes are a lot more convenient than doing it in code, but it's a lot of the low-level building blocks. But like, oh, you want a random value, you want the scale, you want noise, you want this, you want that. But if it's like, oh, I want the... Well, it has been getting better. Oh, let me remember to turn that to 3D. The normalize check has been very useful, and so on, the roughness and such. But these are more high-level nodes. Well, if you want to get the distance to a certain object and then turn that into a velocity, there's no node for that because, again, I'm building a system for it. Will your system allow you to simulate a bunch of irregularly shaped balloons bouncing against each other, suspended on cables? That is very specific, and I don't really think so. Maybe, possibly? That's a very interesting request. If you have a ton of balloons of differing sizes, maybe, like you could have particle self-collisions with varying radius on this, but the cables part, that would have to be a custom setup, like having the cables pull back on the particles. This is just a particle system. You could probably go very wacky with it. So in theory, that is possible. But I did not make this setup with that in mind. That's cool. We're seeing the noise fields. Let's go and bump it up. Oh, that's so cool. I should probably have an attribute for how far the particle moved, for the trail, how far the trail moved per frame. Like just store, no, the velocity is already, no, but I would need to stack the velocities over time. Well, that can be added in later. All right, we are past 1 hour, so I think I should wrap this up. I learned geometry nodes by copying you and any cool visuals I saw. Very cool. I'm very happy you were able to learn. Because, yeah, quite often with geometry nodes, I would look at an effect in a movie or in a Houdini tutorial and be like, could I make that in GeoNodes? And the answer often would be, depending on what effect it was, if it was like a non-simulated effect, like geometry nodes cannot do smoke, water, fire. It can't do any of that. Rigid body simulations don't even try. It's very annoying. You would have to build it yourself. But quite often for some effects, like geometry-based effects, it is geometry nodes after all. The answer would be, yeah, you could do it. It might be a little bit difficult to, but, yeah. Flip, please. Oh, no, I am not going to try to do flip, physics. Because it deals with water simulations, and I have no idea how to do that. Well, I have an idea on how to do it, but geometry nodes is very much not made for it. And if I were to try, it would be extremely slow. The Blender devs are working on, and this will probably be in like Q3 of 2024, volume nodes. So that would be used in order to make fire, smoke, water simulations, because even if you have a particle system, that would be like grid affected, because otherwise it would just be way too slow. Let's see, let's turn that down by a bit. 2 dimensions actually felt better in some scenarios, because it was like, oh, we'll wobble this way, but going up will be easy. So I guess I could do that. It's easier for it to go up than across. Using what was a bug to my advantage. I believe Gerstner waves would require fast Fourier transforms to be usable in GeoNodes. Essentially what the ocean modifier does. The Blender devs did consider adding in fast Fourier transform as a node, but that got abandoned. So there's a chance that someone would recreate that, or take the node and then build upon it, but don't hold your breath. Because the goal of geometry nodes is to replace every single modifier that exists in here. It will be a long, long time before that happens. Like the smooth corrective, and smooth lapation. It's possible for it to do that. Or no, some of these I think require the rest attributes, which I don't think, well, the armature node does not output a rest position attribute, which, or maybe it does. No, it wouldn't be a named attribute. But quite a few of these can be done with geometry nodes at the moment. Yeah. All of these, no, don't even try. It would be horrendously slow. This particle system is slower than the default particle system, just because collisions are, I don't think we have the tech in order to make it as fast as it can be at the moment. Oh, for these nodes, no, you cannot do these. Normal editing, you can't do in geometry nodes yet. Mesh sequence cache, you can't really, because that can use other data, other formats. And then vertex weight, these ones you could do. You can't set vertex, or vertex groups with geometry nodes, but you can edit them, which is very odd. Because, well, they're not quote-unquote anonymous attributes yet. But it is planned, but then again, geometry nodes is in stagnation at the moment. It's on hold. Alright, I think this is good. I might edit a few things before I release the setup. If you have any suggestions for how to make this more convenient, please let me know. But yeah, let me read the last little bit of, Oh, another thing someone just mentioned. There is the groundwork for rotation data for the particles, but I have not implemented it just yet. The named attribute is in there, but I'm still figuring out how to properly do particle rotations, especially when it comes to collisions. So it's just not supported just yet. But in most cases, you won't even need it. Alright. Maybe some more noise. Like, it's looking a little too regular at the moment. Let me also go and turn up the... Oh no, the resolution is already like that. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so that's another one in the system. Yeah. I might do a little... So, here, I'll just put my Discord in my Discord server, which it's fairly dead. But, at the moment, but every once in a while I go and develop stuff on there. Let's see. I'll put the link to there in the chat. I'll be developing some more things, for this system in there right after this stream, maybe with a little delay because I need to go and drink some water. My voice is very much going. But if you want to stop by and say hi and maybe give suggestions while I'm putting the last final touches on this project, feel free to. And yes, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you can use this particle system to its fullest. And I will see you all next time. Oh, and I'll be implementing that particle snapping to the surface of an object in a little bit. Alright, I hope you all had a wonderful time, and I will see you all next time.